Okay, being February 11th at 11:37 a.m., called the meeting of the Boise Public Library Board of Trustees to order. We have a roll call, please.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kamal.
Yes.
Plenty.
Here.
Pantera. Kuznetsky.
Here.
4 board members present. Pantera absent.
So I'd like to introduce first off our new Boise Public Library Council liaison, Lucy Willits. Welcome, Lucy. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to be our liaison. And hopefully we have a great opportunity to hear from you in terms of what the council is thinking as we move forward, and you get a chance to see how we conduct our business at our end. And we've got meetings planned, joint meetings planned later this month and in the ensuing months. So forward to a great relationship as we have had with your predecessors. So thank you to be a part of this.
Happy to be here. Just on a note, I had the opportunity to meet with Jessica last week and see how their model is going. It's always amazing to me how people are able just to adapt with lots of things going on. We just love the library and all that you're doing, and just thank you. It's always inspiring to just see people in action, and I saw it when I was there visiting Jessica. So thank you.
Okay. Great. Hey, so the next item on our agenda is communications. We don't have any at the moment. And so that takes us to the minutes. Yeah, hope everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I reviewed the minutes and feel like accurately represent the proceedings of the January 14th meeting. I move that we approve them adequately.
You have a second?
I wasn't here in January, but
well, I guess I will second. So call for vote.
Johnson.
yes.
Kamal.
Yes.
Plenty.
Yes.
Pantera. Kuznetsky.
Can I abstain? I don't know what we're voting on yet.
The minute. Thank you for joining us, Nikki. It's the minutes.
Oh, okay. Aye.
Able to join us. Okay. Moving on, the next item is the consent agenda. As a reminder, all matters on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved in a single motion. Trustee may ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Would anyone like anything on the consent agenda removed, considered separately? Hearing not, would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kamal.
Yes.
Plenty.
Yes.
Pantera.
Yes.
Kuznetsky.
Yes.
Motion.
Okay. It takes us to our reports, and I see that Kirsten's up there. So welcome, Kirsten. Be happy to hear from the Friends Board what you've been up to, and the floor is yours. You're muted, so if you need to unmute your microphone, we can see you fine. There we go.
Yeah. Yes, we just had our fiction one-day sale this last Saturday. It went well. We don't have our numbers yet, but it went well. And then we have our big sale, spring sale, April 16th through the 19th, as well as a spring online auction, which are some more unique items, which is April 22nd to May 3rd. The new board is in place. We're looking at doing some technology upgrades or making things easier and getting into some long-term planning.
Sounds good. So were there any changes to your board?
Yes, there were substantial changes. I'm still president. Right now I'm the acting treasurer. Penny Manning's the vice president, and Michael, I don't know how to say his last name, is the secretary. We got probably 4 or 5 new board members. who are all getting up and running. We're looking at, recruitment, public media, really, I guess you could mostly say social media. And there's been some changes in operations. So there's stuff going on. Nothing really big, but yeah. So
Great.
that's what we're up to.
Sounds good. Perhaps just for the board's edification, if you could maybe send to Jessica or Carrie a list of the new board members would be helpful for us to know who they are.
Sure.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions for Pierce? Anybody? All right, thank you very much for the report. Sounds like got some great things happening in the next few months. All right, that takes us to the foundation board. Meredith, welcome.
Thank you. So the foundation board hasn't met since we last talked. We meet tomorrow.
Very good.
So we had, I don't have a lot of updates yet because we have a little overlap. Jessica and I have been trying to connect and have had very busy schedules. So we're still trying to get that scheduled, and we'll probably just meet the two of us at least once a month. And Jessica, just let me know what your schedule looks like this week or next. We'll eventually connect.
We sure will.
We have one board member request a leave of absence on Monday, and they are going to be out until May the 9th. This is one of our newer board members, and she did a lot of, she had a really good fundraising background. So I don't know how, what the circumstances are and whether she'll be able to recommit after May. So we're now down to 9 board members, and I'd like to add 2 more people, someone with a fundraising background and somebody with a financial background. So if any of you know of someone that you think is a good potential fit for that, shoot me an email, and I'd love to get some recommendations for those.
On financial background, are you looking for someone with accounting expertise, or is this about investment strategies?
It's more about investment strategies. We've had a gentleman that's been on the board for a long time that's been doing that for us. And he has a background in financial advising. He's committed to the next year, and then I think he's going to take a break. And then we have the person taking over as treasurer works for First Interstate Bank. So I would just like to always have 2 people, especially a strategic financial advisor. I think that's important. And as Doug rolls off, I'd rather have someone that he could kind of work with in the next year.
So there's a large number of wealth management firms or remote offices in Boise, and it always seems like those are the types of people who like to have public service activities on their resume. So I'll keep my eyes open, go through my contact list and see if anything's appropriate, but I think you're going to have good luck finding what you're looking for. That'd
be great. Yeah. And the woman who's taking the break, she had such a good fundraising background, and already helped us have a couple of good projects just at the end of the year last year. So that's another, I think those people are harder to find, but someone that does especially have like a nonprofit fundraising background, that would be great.
I might have some names for that.
Okay, thanks, Ron. That'd be great. You just mentioned to the friends to get the names of the new officers. I'll be working with I think it's on Jessica's team, to get our website updated with the names of our new officers. I just need to get that done in the next month. Let me know if you need, I know we talked about the new officers last time. Let me know if you need their names ahead of that, but we'll update our webpage.
Siobhan, sorry, Meredith, I know Siobhan is coming to your board meeting tomorrow
Yeah.
and you can work with her on getting the names.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I was planning to talk with her privately anyway, so that'll be great. I have her on the agenda. We do have one fundraising program running at Lost Grove Brewing, and that is going to run through the month of March. So if any of you are meeting somebody for a beer or something, go to Lost Grove and have them round up to donate to the library. I don't have, it started in January. I don't have any data from them. Some of the breweries are kind of challenging to get together with to go over numbers, but I've got a meeting scheduled with someone at Lost Grove next week. So hopefully I'll find out more. And we've got two other opportunities that are on our radar. One is a fundraiser with Bardenay, and I just have not heard back from the contact there. They offered us a really excellent opportunity in August, but I just have had a really hard time hearing back from her. So we'll follow up on that. And there's one other new one that we're going to talk about at the board meeting tomorrow. So if those two materialize, I'll let you guys know about those two because they're pretty big. They're bigger than just the Roundup campaign. And that's all that I have that's new. Do you have any questions for me?
You have questions? Sounds great, Meredith. Thanks for all your work and for the work of your colleagues on the board.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we'll meet tomorrow and have a more robust update for you next time.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Board?
thank you. I just want to update the board on a couple things. First, I'm sure if you didn't hear about it on social media, hopefully you read about it in the packet. We did have 2 days last month where we did need to close the building early to the public because of an accident that was made by one of the, it is part of the construction where a sprinkler was knocked off and resulted in a rather spectacular, but fortunately not particularly damaging flood. We were fortunate that damages to the materials were minimal since it was mostly in the construction site shortly after a lot of the demo. So we did need to close because it just wasn't safe for staff and the public to get into the building because of how the water was literally going out the front door. In both cases, we brought in, or both days, the disaster repair team was brought in to get all the water out, to dry the floors so that we could have people safely in the building. So we opened back up when it was safe for staff and the public. This means that library operations were safe, it was safe for construction to continue, risk and safety was involved in making sure that we had that. But obviously it was a disruption and had a real opportunity to meet with Lindsay and the Public Works team and our contractor to make sure that a different plan was in place so that that wouldn't happen again. It is a old building and it continues to have surprises for us. But I was really impressed and want to thank all the staff and the public that were accommodating of it, that really made sure that we prioritized safety and came up with a solution. So hopefully that won't. Well, we know that I hate to say it won't happen again. Something different will happen that we will adjust on as well. And we are in the process also, I think I mentioned in my report, some of them on the first day, there were materials that were damaged. We have Kathy and the ATS team cataloged everything that was damaged to the point that it needed to be removed. We sent a list to every Links Consortium library that had an item that that was on our in our bins when they were damaged, and we are in the process of making sure that we reimburse those libraries for their damaged materials.
your director's report's very thorough, in this instance, it was particularly thorough, which I value getting caught up on the details of what you're wrestling with. I know the procedure is you notify the president of such incidents. I would have appreciated knowing about what was going on earlier. I think I saw something at Boise, but it didn't make it look significant. And it would be nice and something of a significant magnitude if we all were advised that the problem had occurred and maybe have some updates as the issues are being dealt with.
Okay. That makes sense. Something goes to the press. Yeah.
My understanding, and tell me if I'm mistaken, is that the contractor's insurance company cover the damage and or losses that as a result of this. It's not going to be the city that's going to be covered. Thank you.
So work continues. We're really excited in we're making great progress on the electrical. This is where we are building and switching over to a new electrical system in the building. The contractor that's been doing the work on the electrical has done a lot of that work outside of our hours that are open to the public. We originally thought, I think you might remember, we thought we would be coming to the board with some, 2 to 3 day closures for them to do the work. They have been able to schedule that work starting sort of, Saturday at 2:30, working overnight so that when we open back up on Sunday, we'll be able to have computers and have the public back in the building. So we are very appreciative of their flexibility on that. We will be coming to the board next month for, so in the March meeting, we'll be coming to you with a request for a closure to actually switch over the electrical system. And this is when it'll move from one power system to another. And so that will, we know now that we will need to make sure that we have the building closed for that. We anticipate we'll need to be closed for a week for that. And so we will come to you next month with more details on what that closure means for staff and the public. But wanted to give you a heads up on that. And then there's 2 places where I'm hoping to get your input. One was in the packet, and another one I will share with you later today. There are 2 surveys out that are particularly interested in getting trustee input. The first one about, that is the Idaho Commission for Libraries. Their survey is open until March 31st. They're trying to get feedback from library staff, volunteers, trustees. This is going to help with their planning. The Idaho Commission for Libraries also advocates for libraries at the state level. And so the more people who take this survey, the more they'll be able to show the state of Idaho's usage of libraries, how many people are involved in working in libraries or supporting libraries. So I will send this to you because I would really like to ask you to complete that survey. I took it because it also has directors on it. It wasn't a very long survey.
You put a link in the
Correct.
director's report. I used it.
Oh, good.
Did the survey and you made it easy for us already.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to send you another one. And I've heard this one. And this survey is specifically for trustees. So it's called the Trustee Project. It's made possible by a grant from the Institute of Museums and Library Service. It is aimed at helping understand the trustee experience, everything from selection to training to service. What would be useful for trustees to know before they join a board, during, how can you be better supported? So I will make it as easy as possible. I will send you a link to it. I haven't taken it, but I think it would be really great if you all might be able to spend some time and complete that survey. Because the library trustees are so important, and it is also such a specific experience that we really want to make sure that you have as much support as possible. Thank you. No, but I will stand for questions.
Any questions? Jessica? Hearing none, we will move on to Request for reconsideration. Again, this month, we do not have any requests for reconsideration. Brings us to old business and like Sarah to come up as we go through our policy review.
Right, we are starting on section 4.0, use of the library. We do have a couple of changes contained. One is in a regulation, so that does not require a vote. There is one on policy that will require a vote. You're going to see some additions. So starting with 4.01, use of the library. We reviewed it last year. You had no recommended changes, no recommended changes this year. 4.02 on circulation, that also still holds. Library cards, 4.02A regulation is going to stay the same. And then when you hit 4.02B regulation, limits on borrowing materials, we had made some changes after we presented this last time. This is on, oh, my page number
Page
is not
42.
show on here.
Page 42 in your packet.
Thank you. We did some refining and clarifying on limits on borrowing materials. One thing you'll notice at the top is it says a card holder may have up to 999 items checked out at one time. This was added in because previously we did not have a limit at all, but as part of the consortium, so that we're all in agreement, that was the agreed top number. So that's why you see that there.
Is this by a library card holder?
Mhm.
It
Yep.
seems an extraordinary number.
Yeah.
Have a limit at all. And typically.
Why not arbitrarily select 20 or a dozen or, 999 seems an absurd number.
It doesn't happen. You don't want to restrict because if you've got a family that has a bunch of kids, you've got, a bunch of picture books you'd get over a limit really quickly. It hasn't been a barrier or a challenge for us at all.
But you could say, much like the fees, they were taken out of the text of the matter that was being discussed and moved into a separate table. You could take the number of items to be borrowed as a limit and say it's available for reference, it's updated from time to time without putting it in print as 999.
Go ahead, Brent.
I was just saying, am I mistaken that this was an agreement that happened within the Lynx
Yep.
library to have
To have a limit.
a limit, and they all agreed that let's make it as high a number as possible. And so we don't have a situation where we're doing something different than our colleagues in the other libraries, since there's so much interlibrary.
But it's
I mean, not
for a
interlibrary,
Lynx
but
member, that all the members of their library have a total of 999. It's a given member of the library within the Lynx network can have 900.
right, no, I understand.
Just seems silly. So I don't really like the explanation, well, everybody else is doing it, so we should do it. Personally, I think you ought to evaluate that and consider the library has a policy, it's available for reference, or we bring it up when someone hits a number like that. But to publish it, it just seems like I could come with a shopping cart and fill it up with stuff and take off with it.
I mean, I suppose you could, but you're still responsible for it. So if they didn't come back, then there would be replacement fees and.
And you'll also notice we do have changes to the some of the other categories of materials where there is a much more limiting number. So for instance, 10 items on books on CDs, books with media, e-audio books, music. Those are collections that we have limited copies of. And so the discussion was with that trade-off. Okay, if we know we are going to have to restrict on some of these items because of their cost per item, we can encourage people to take as many of the physical print items because some of these, the music CDs, the Blu-rays, the new books,
Video game.
we've had to limit those because of how the cost for those items is so much higher. And the replacement cost, sometimes we just can't get those. So that was sort of the trade-off as well of, where do we encourage people and where are we really being stewards of taxpayer dollars? That was the discussion and as you can see, some of these changes really are to try to align with the rest of the consortium, because it's very confusing when you get a book. You know, you and I check out the same book, but you picked up one from one library that has a different rate of when you need to return it than the other. And likewise with, why could I go to my library and get 20 games and that you could only get 2? So we really are focused on that having a consistent borrowing policy, because it really makes that frontline staff interaction much easier.
Seems like it reads unlimited to me. I'll let this rest.
Well, we're gonna be curious when you show up to next morning with a shopping cart.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on that as well.
Go ahead, Lucy.
I noticed that, and it seemed like a very high amount. I had the same shock and awe. I'm curious, what has been the maximum amount anyone has ever checked out at one time?
That is a great question. I don't know if we could go back and find that. Certainly no one's walked out with 999 materials all at one shot.
I mean, is it like, do people come with 100 items? Because
yep, people will check out armloads. Okay. Yeah.
That's helpful in terms of giving some sort of a comparison, because I wondered if that was something that happened often. So thank you.
Ron, I would just say, I mean, I kind of like it because it reads to me as encouraging use of the library by taxpayers and kind of an open access concept. And then just the other thing I'd noticed like if I check out like National Geographic magazine, it automatically checks out to me like every issue, and it automatically checks in. So I also kind of thought of those things, that it's not necessarily I'm like putting 100 books in my cart, but some of these things like are checkouts that are kind of like routine things that don't have as big of an impact. So anyway, just saying I can understand where you're coming from on the $9.99.
And it was mentioned in the discussion that the fee schedule, they would incur fees for not returning things. There's not a late fee on the fee schedule that I can see.
There's not.
So
don't charge late fee.
999, I could hold them out for a couple of years.
You cannot return to lost. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. But yes, you can't keep something indefinitely. It does need to come back. We're going to be good stewards of the materials and have them available for everybody. Yeah.
And when do they turn to lost, roughly? Is it anywhere in the policy?
It is. Let me hold on. I know, can we just go through and then, that'll be easier. Thank you.
Just as a reference, any other questions or comments about the limits question? Hearing that one.
Okay. So then policy 4.03 is fees, and that one is one that you'll have to vote on. So because we're requesting some changes for clarity. And part of that is we've added a related regulation, the 4.03A fee schedule, so that we've got all of our fees in one spot, because we realized things were scattered all over the place and not all public facing. So we wanted to make sure we can find it easily for everybody. And that will also make it easier to update policy going forward, because we won't have to find it in multiple spots. We can go to this fee schedule right there. So we have cleaned it up, and part of that cleanup, you'll see amounts crossed out because we've transferred them over to the fee schedule itself and added some clarity. We have, removed a big chunk of wording because it's now scattered throughout, and we no longer use a collection agency. So that giant paragraph that's there, a lot of that had to do with a collection agency. So that has been crossed out and then changed to the order of a couple of things. You'll notice it does say no physical materials will be allowed to users, crossed out to users, owing $10 or more in fees, nor to any user who has unresolved charges on an account referred to a collection agency. We did leave that reference to the collection agency because we still have outstanding fees on accounts, some from our own, but also from other consortium libraries who were still using a collection agency. Do you have any questions on this part?
Buddy? Hearing none. Okay, so, we need to do a motion to approve the changes to 4.3, 4.03, 4.02B.
4.02B is a regulation, so that is not the board's
not one.
policy, not.
Not
Just
regulations.
4.03, right?
Yeah,
Just 4.03, excuse
I'll move to approve the changes to policy 4.03.
me. Have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Agreed.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kamal,
Yes.
Lenny,
No,
Pantera,
Yes.
Kuznetsky,
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 against, motion carries.
And then did anyone have any questions about the fee schedule itself? Sorry, that was the piece we added into it.
the only was when something converts to law.
Oh, right, which was actually in it wouldn't be in this section. Anyone in the audience?
28 days.
Oh.
After it goes, so once it goes to overdue, after 28 days, it moves over to being lost, and that's when they're charged for the replacement cost.
And I'll need to double check for you on which section of policy that is. Thank you, Renee.
So can I recommend that perhaps in the conversations with our next consortium, like relate to them that there was questions about the number 999, whether or not that seemed like an excessive number for something between 100 and 999 might seem more appropriate, or to just not. I understand the reason why you want to reference it rather than not reference it at all. Assume that everything is unlimited, but perhaps the 999 maybe. Yeah, there's some question about whether that seems excessive.
We can absolutely check in. We were unlimited before that.
Right, I understand.
Okay. Okay. Yes, happy to carry that forward. Thank you.
All right. That takes us to facility plan discussion, which I presume is going to take the time we have left.
I believe so. Carrie will pull up the slides that I am going to use to inform this discussion. I obviously am joined as always. Greg.
What happened?
We need to be able to share, please.
Stand by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
I didn't even have to like spill water for this. Okay. Especially pleased that Lindsay's able to join today as she does because of how much work that she's helped since our last discussion in this to really help connect the discussions that the library board is having related to facilities to other discussions within the city with other departments around facilities and facility planning. She's really helped us tap into some of the best planning and thinking across the city, and I'm really excited to show some of the views that are being discussed with council because I think they really connect to the work that we are doing. and actually we can build upon it. So as always,
Can I just pause for a second?
of course.
Because when
Oh, yeah.
when the PowerPoint is on the screen, it takes up all the screen. Nikki and Lucy, if you have questions along the way, please just jump in because I won't be able to see you to acknowledge you.
You got it. Thank you.
No, it's on. Oh, there we go. Okay. As always, our mission to provide access and opportunity for everyone by connecting people to ideas, information, and community. And we do that both physically and digitally. You've seen this before. This is the goals of our facility plan to ensure that our libraries are welcoming, accessible, attractive, comfortable spaces for the entire community. We are working on a plan for the next 10 to 20 years, and we're really focused on sort of what happens in the next 5. These are the steps that we outlined following the October joint work session with council. So we had that, Lindsay and I went on December 16th to council to talk specifically about that downtown library. Here is your reminder for February 24th. That's Tuesday, February 24th. That is the joint work session on library set location criteria and service goals. We'll do some, at the end of this discussion, we'll make sure we're prepped for that conversation with council. I don't believe we yet know the exact time of that, but as soon as we do, we will reach out to you and let you know, and it will be at council chambers. Then after that, Lindsay and I will go back to council with some of the options that we have. This is some of the pricing for different leased models, standalone models, co-located facilities. This is catching up council to the presentation that you all had from us in September of last year. And with that done in place, then we'll have this final joint work session that really culminates in that capital plan where we've got our targets and our goals, and we're moving forward, particularly thinking about the options that we have in that 10 to 20 timeframe. So my goals for today, first, I want to update the board on the work that we've done since our January meeting. Prep for the joint work session by reviewing the recommendations that we started that October meeting with. I want to spend the bulk of this time discussing our need for additional space and some strategies that the city has used in response. And I particularly want to talk about a proximity goal or a square feet per capita goal. As I said, I want to highlight some connections to city planning discussions to give you I'm going to also give you some links later in an email to some of the council presentations. So if you're interested, you could take a look at some of those discussions, including the one that happened last night. And then obviously answer any questions on the joint work session. So a couple quick updates, because I don't want to spend time in this meeting unless there are questions, particularly Evelyn and Rashma. I know you weren't able to join us in January, so I want to make sure you have a chance for questions. But based on the conversation that we had in January, we updated the library site selection criteria and added a scoring matrix. We put this into the pages of 46 of 48 in this month's packet. And we've divided those categories into 4 sections: access and connectivity, site capacity and functionality, community context and experience, and then feasibility, risk, and long-term value. That was sort of how we rolled up those categories. And as a reminder, really the difference we saw between the 2000 site selection criteria and what we're recommending going forward is adding the opportunities for co-location of city services, tying to current city planning strategies, and then really making sure that we've got some of the more the updated goals, particularly around environmental stewardship and climate. So that's the work we've done there. You see it in your packet. And then the other work that we are doing but didn't want to spend time in today's discussion is the continued refinement of the library service goals, with obviously the exception of the proximity goal, which we'll discuss. Our fabulous James Souter, our data analyst, has helped us come up with some baselines of where we are for FY25. So we'll be able to think about what targets would be that we could develop in those strategy areas. All right. Now what I want to do, if there's no questions on that, I will move us to a reminder of where we were in October of 2025 and the recommendations that we have been discussing throughout this process. That first recommendation, invest in our current facilities. Number 2, explore innovations and partnerships. And 3, increase library space. So we are making good progress on investing in our current facilities. As you know, we did the work to take the appendix that Group 4 built for us. We have done the work to forecast the equipment that they have asked us to build replacement cycles for, indicated we should, and we are working now, Lindsay and her team in Public Works are working to make sure that that is part of future capital budget builds. Continuing to participate in Links Library Consortium. As you see, the earlier discussion we had today talks about the work that we are doing to really take advantage of that consortium and the ability to share materials. And then we have started, Lindsay's team is looking at how to approach renewing the leases for Collister and Hillcrest. I think we've got some good discussions going on those innovation and partnerships, and that'll be some of the work ahead. Looking for specialized services, looking for non-staff models. Those are some of the things that we presented to you in September, which we'll be bringing to council to look at as well. And then I'm really excited about this exploring partnerships and expanded programs with the Links Library partners. As you may remember, we launched the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, which we're doing in conjunction with Meridian and Ada. And that, I think, is an example of where we're taking advantage of overlap in who we serve to make sure that that program is seamless across those 3 systems. So we actually had somebody talk about, oh, I signed up for the program. I was at the Victory. I live in Meridian. I signed up in Ada, and then I picked up a prize at Bound Crossing. So it hasn't been that long that we've been doing it, but we're starting to track and see that shared experience. And so then the work we're building on, what we'll discuss today, is the third recommendation area, and that is really the needing to increase the library space. So this is where we have really looked at how do we budget to secure, equip, and staff additional library spaces. Where can we find opportunities to co-locate library services with other city services? And of course, we need to continue to do our forecasting, understanding the expectations and requirements of Prop 1. So I want to talk about our need for growth, because we are at a moment in time where, as you know, Idaho continues to see significant population growth. Boise is part of that. And as I mentioned, these are discussions that are happening in every city department. How do we as a city that continues to grow think about providing city services? So police is having this discussion, fire, parks, libraries, really the discussions that I hear at council, the discussions that I have with my colleagues across the city are really focused on how do we continue to provide quality services to the public, meet their expectations, knowing that we're growing and that we have limited funding and limited opportunities to grow that way. So I wanted to start with some of the strategies that the library has used in growth, because the trend in growth is not new to Idaho, and it's not new to Boise, but it certainly has been accelerating. And when I think back about the ways that the library has looked at growth, it's done it in a couple different ways. So in 2000, the master facility plan created the branch strategy. And this was a recognition of, at that time, there was only the downtown library. It was centrally located, but there was many people that were in areas that were wanting to have a library that was closer to them. And so that resulted in the 4 branches that we see today. Hillcrest, Collister, Colin Ustick, and Crossing. The city was also looking at its own growth and thinking about where to make sure that we're providing services. And so this is where we have the proximity goal that was part of the Blueprint Boise. And this is that proximity goal of having people have access to library services within a 3-mile radius. My discussion that I want to have today, and we'll walk through it, is I think the advantages of a proximity goal and the disadvantages of a proximity goal. I think we have to date the 2 strategies of the branch strategy, proximity goal, have resulted in well-located branches, but they are inadequate in size for our current population and certainly for our growing population. Which is why I'd like us to discuss and consider adding a square footage per capita goal. This was something that has been recommended that we consider, and I've brought some stuff to show why I think that case it's a good time to have that discussion.
I like that as a strategy.
So you may remember this slide. You know what? I should not assume that. This is a slide that was presented by Jill Ayers in September of last year that I think really sort of shows that growth of library space and Boise population. And I think it shows a way of thinking about how population growth can be connected to library space growth. Excuse me. So as you can see from 1990, when there was only the 1 downtown library, sorry, I'm struggling, tickle in my throat. Okay. So the blue at the bottom is library space, and you can see how that has grown over time. 1990, we had 1 location, and as you start to see the branches come in, that moves over and that grows. Boise's population has grown at a higher rate. So this is where you see that orange line, which is the library square feet per capita, where we are today. The recommendation, but looking at peer libraries from group 4 is that orange band above us, which really would be a library per capita range that they estimate would be a better, would enable us to serve our public better. So our current per capita square foot is 0.52 square feet of space per capita. By group 4's estimation, we're about 20 to 30% below the space that we need for today's population. That would put us at a 0.66 to 0.71 square feet per capita. That equals to about 30 to 40,000 additional square feet. But as they point out, that is today's gap. And as we continue to add more people, it's important for us to understand both what is our growth rate and where do we expect our future populations to be. So, we've got a deficit now, but as that deficit grows, we need to be really focused on where we're going to see that deficit grow. So this is the question of, well, why would we want to focus on this square footage and not proximity? First off, there are no industry standards in the library world for either of these, square footage or for proximity. There's such a local determinant. They have a lot of variables that go into them. The area of a city, the density of its population, the history of how libraries were created, the geography of that, either cities or mountains through it. So there isn't a way for the library field has never come up with a target that they apply across the communities or across the country, which means it really does need to be a local consideration. And this is where I see that the 2000 master facility plan, which created the branches, Blueprints Boise goal of a 3-mile radius, has resulted in well-located branches with comprehensive coverage. With that goal, 87% of Boise residents live within 3 miles of a Boise Public Library. 97% of Boise lives within 3 miles of a Boise Public or Lynx Library. So you see that real comprehensive coverage with that 3-mile goal. But as I said, it's resulted in branches that are inadequately sized to meet the needs and expectations of our current and future users. So I think, the example we have of this is Collister, that where we know that that's a growing population. We don't even have a meeting room large enough to have a board meeting in that, so it's not part of the rotation. We have a location, but we just don't have it at that size. So
Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry, thank you.
hello, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, go ahead, Liz.
Thank you. Director Dorr, did you or Lindsay do any analysis on the council's conversation about a smaller area in terms of, like we talked about, 2 miles? Was any of that data crunched by chance?
You are forecasting some future
yay,
slides.
Good. I'll keep watching.
I like it when I can deliver with a question that was asked.
Like a movie preview. Keep going.
Okay. So I'm gonna take us back to the map that we discussed in January. This is the map and I'm sorry, these are not in your packet. So I see some of you flipping back and forth. We don't have them in the packet, but we'll be able to get them to you. So this is the map that was discussed in January, and I want to center everybody in this because I want to then show you the maps that were requested. So I thought it would be good to review what we looked at before to talk about what was requested, and I'm going to bring these back. So in previous discussions, this information was requested, a map with our best-in-class transit corridor. So thinking about, our site selection criteria has that ease of access. Let's make sure we're looking at where we're building those best-in-class transits. A map with our Title I schools identified. These are the schools that receive federal funding because of the number of students that are low income that they serve. So these, when we're looking at some of our goals about making sure every kid is ready to read and has our own library card, identifying those schools as the students that we're hoping to reach was important. Then there was a request for proximity views around drive time calculations. And I know at least the 10 and the 15 were discussed, and we put in the 5 as well, just because it makes it easier to see what you're looking at. And then, as Councilmember Willits requested, the 2-mile radius as well. I want to give a huge shout out to Matt Entinger from the IT team who does GIS, and Emily Dixon, who is the PDS analyst who works with FIRE. They are fabulous in creating maps and helping look at the views. So what you'll see is both their thinking and then the maps that they built as well. So this is the map that I want to highlight. It's the map that we just saw with the 3 miles, Lynx and Boise Public Library. And then the blue lines are those best-in-class transit lines. So those are State, Vista, and Fairview. So you'll see that in the other maps that are going along. And then the little flags in the different colors are those Title I schools. So those, again, when we're thinking about some of the outreach that we're doing in terms of helping kids learn to read and stay at grade level reading, those are schools that we're particularly interested in. And they're in different colors. The lighter color is elementary. I think that's like a yellow, orange is junior high, and red are the high schools. All right. So then we looked at some of the proximity, we looked at the drive times. We're building on the work that group 4 did. If you remember, one of the things they looked at was where are people checking out books and are there barriers? So we wanted to sort of take from that steps, take from their work and then dig a little deeper. So this is a 5-minute drive time. The light blue is the people who are able to drive to a library. And again, this is Boise Public Library, as well as our links partners within 5 miles. And you're gonna start to see some numbers because the darker the color, the more people more libraries people can access. So right now with a 5-minute, you don't see overlap, but you also notice where the transit corridors are starting to play into how people access a library. Last night, Josh Wilson was sharing some of the planning documents that with council and was looking at fires. Fire is the one that really focuses on this 5-minute drive because they're trying to understand how much housing is going within that 5-minute. Obviously, fire has a very invested interest in understanding how long it takes them to drive from a fire station to a residence. All right, so that's the 5-minute drive. This next view is going to show a 10-minute drive, and this is where you start to see some of the overlap. So the gradient colors start to show how many people can drive to 1 library, 2 libraries, 3 libraries, or 4 libraries within a 10-minute drive. And this is where you start to see some of the overlap. And I think this also explains some of the maps that group 4 showed us that showed, oh, people are making choices about which library they go to. It may not be the closest library to them. It may be one near their child's school or where they work, or if they're going to a different activity, they may swing by a library. We're starting to see some of that overlap. And the last map is the same view, but with a 15-minute drive. So again, you really see a significant overlap in the northwest of Boise, where people are traveling between our libraries and those links libraries are really pulling into this map, particularly because you see some of that transit corridor. And then also as we move east and south, there is less overlap, but people still have a significant coverage. So if you go, I'm going to go back to the 10-minute walk or the 10-minute drive. 94% of Boise residents can drive to at least 1 library in less than 10 minutes. And if you move to the 15, we have 99% of Boise can drive to at least 1 library in 15 minutes. Okay, any questions on that? I'm going to move to, as requested, the potential of what would happen if we considered moving to a 2-mile radius from the 3-mile radius as our proximity goal. This is what that would look like if we were only looking at Boise Public Library residents. So we move from having 87% of Boise within that 3-mile radius to 68% of Boise within a 2-mile radius. And the next slide is going to show what happens with the links libraries, moving the links libraries also to a 2-mile radius. That moves us from having a 97% coverage with the 3 miles to a 79% coverage. And as you can see, this is a map that very clearly shows a significant percentage of our West Boise residents would be outside of a 2-mile coverage for libraries. And it also opens up questions specifically around South and East Boise. And this is where, tying into some of the city planning discussions, I want to bring you up to speed on some of those because I think they factor in. We obviously have a very large percentage of West Boise is now outside of that, but we've got south and then southeast of Bound Crossing and then up into the foothills. And so you could actually start to build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 proximity circles that you would need 2 miles to really capture that area as well. All right, so I want to move to some of the planning discussions. Lindsay and I spent last night watching Maureen Brewer, who's the Director of Planning and Development Services, and her fabulous team, including Deanna Dupuy, who is part of our steering committee. This was one of the, we really wanted to make sure we had, in addition to Public Works, PDS in our steering committee to help us with some of these understanding future, the future growth and where discussions are happening at the city level, particularly around South Boise. And here's some of the slides that I have pulled that I think are relevant. So the first one I want to do is some work that the planning team was asked in the January 27th city council meeting. It was specifically about planning for these 3 areas that have been identified in South Boise. They are called the Lake Hazel South Airport, Lake Hazel South Airport, Third Bench, and Columbia Bench, East Columbia. So the staff came and presented or talked a little bit about this, and then were asked by council to spend a year really coming up with a plan for these 3 areas. And so part of where I am happy that we've done the work to get some of our site selection criteria and some of our what we're looking for in terms of library services is that planning team should be able to use that input when they're looking at these spaces. And then yesterday's council work session was also really interesting to me in terms of there were 2 presentations, Josh Wilson on the zoning code, and then Deanna Dupuy on where we think housing might go. These are the focused development areas that were identified. This is using the modern zoning code, looking at where the city thinks development will focus. Downtown planning area, along best-in-class transit routes, so State, Vista, Fairview. These regional and community activity centers, these are identified in Blueprint Boise, and then mixed zone use. So you can see this is where the city is anticipating that growth will happen. And with the modern zoning code, Josh also shared this slide yesterday. Where has new housing been approved? And you can see that it is lining up with those the development areas as they were expecting. So where downtown, the new housing units downtown, within a quarter-mile of best-in-class transit, within a quarter-mile of activity centers, and within those mixed zone uses. That was 65% of the housing that's been approved, new housing that's been approved since the modern zoning code went into effect. So I think we're starting to see the impact of that and where growth is expected to continue. And then Deanna was able to share, I think the next piece that was really interesting to me, particularly we have an opportunity to look for places for co-location and shared services. There was a housing inventory that she presented on, that was looking at with our current lots and the current structures on them, where might we expect there to be growth? And where could we see housing added to? The blue is places that were identified for high density housing. Those are apartments. This is a place where we're thinking about, could we be on the ground floor of a structure that has affordable housing on top of it? Fuchsia, the compact, is places where there's opportunities for more infill. So that would be a lot that has a house on it, but could have a tiny home or an ADU. Or that would be or maybe it's a vacant lot, or maybe it's a lot where, there's a house that would be torn down, maybe some condos or townhouses could be put in. So you're starting to see where that growth is. And again, it really is along transit corridors and infill. So with that, I'm going to talk about my recommendations and I want to have this discussion on this. I would recommend that we keep the current 3-mile proximity goal as it is. I think it does a good job of helping us think about spacing our libraries appropriately. But I think that the 2-mile, shrinking the 2-mile doesn't take advantage of how people are traveling, doesn't reflect where we expect people will go, and really opens us up to having more small libraries that just don't have that aren't able to meet our current users. Particularly knowing we're going to see more density. We're going to see more density in the Hollister neighborhood. We're going to see more density in Hillcrest, and those are already locations that are undersized. So I would recommend that we consider, right now we've got that 0.52. I think we should consider moving to that 0.66 to 0.71 range and use that as how we measure. Not just that we've got libraries in the right place, but we're adding square footage to keep up with growth in Boise. I think we use the library site selection criteria to evaluate potential sites. Again, I want to focus on that Hollister and Hillcrest neighborhoods. There's some reasons that we get some efficiencies and some benefit as well that I'll talk about in staffing. And obviously we're also still, if we want to add square footage downtown, we can look and are continuing to look at ways we could relocate admin and our back of house from downtown. And then I also really want to engage in city planning discussions to identify expansion opportunities tied to growth. I think when we look at that West Boise and not having a Boise library in that, I think I'm more concerned about us missing an opportunity for growth in the South. I think in West Boise, we have to think about ways of expanding a smaller footprint, using some of the creative options that we talked about in terms of holds and lockers. But the cost of a full site in there is, as we know, going to be super challenging with today's economic climate and one. And then I really want us to engage in these city planning discussions because I want to make sure that we are part of any discussion at the city level about opportunities tied to growth. And I do think it's super important that anytime we're forecasting this need for additional space, that we're also talking about the need for additional staff. And so one of the things that we've done is we've done some work in this. I want to credit Emily Johnson and Heidi Lewis and Sarah Kelly Chase for really looking at our current staffing model and being able to tie, if we're adding a certain square footage, what is the number of FTE that we need in order to have that space available for the public. So there's a very complicated calculation Then I tried to explain to Ron yesterday and he asked me to pull it up to a higher level. But we can get into it because it's really built on it's a calculation built on the size of the building, the number of hours open to the public, the number of service desks, number of floors. But it really does boil down to have this square footage, to have it open to the public, to have the services that the public expects. This is what we would need to add. And so this is where I think the Hillcrest and Collister neighborhoods are in particular appealing to this, because we already have staff in those. So instead of having to add a net new, we're able to take the Collister staff, the Hillcrest staff, supplement them. All right. And with that, I just want to open it up for discussion. Your thoughts on keeping the proximity goal at 3 miles and shifting or adding, I should say, adding a focus to square foot per person so that we get both. We get how close are people to a library and how are we looking at some of that density and future planning. And then maybe I'll pause there because then we'll have some, what are other thoughts and questions?
Okay. Thoughts from any of our trustees?
And maybe we can, unless people want to see, go back to slides, maybe we can take down the slides so that we can see
spaces.
Okay.
So the slides say the homework has been done, so that's, I appreciate that. It's a compelling message when you go to present it. I agree with your recommendations. It seems like whether it's 2 miles or 3 miles, it doesn't make a dramatic difference. It points out some areas which we already know we have an issue. So I agree with the recommendations, and I think the slides we just walked through says we understand what we're doing. We've done our homework. We feel confident about our recommendation.
Okay.
Similar assessment, yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Thoughts?
same great work, I think. Slide speaks more than what the need that reflects it.
So Nikki, any thoughts?
I agree with Jessica's recommendations. I think I also agree it makes more sense not to use the 2-3 miles and to look more broadly at the other factors that you're talking about, just kind of based on what we found out in that study about how people use the library. And then I was also thinking related to that at the listening sessions I was at, there was a lot of conversations about like people would be willing to, for example, drive to one location that had like a 3D printer set up and a real like maker space. Anyway, so it also just takes into account, I think, the way people use and like those kinds of opportunities too. So yeah, those are my main thoughts. And then I would also agree with what Jessica said is I remain really concerned about like the density questions at some of our existing branches and Collister, I think Jessica mentioned, that's just like a very, very popular library in an area that's growing so fast. And it's already just way too small and not able to be utilized how it should. So I think that also aligns with your recommendations. So, and I appreciate all the work that went into this. This is really helpful information.
So I have a number of thoughts about this. I mean, one is I'll just say it out loud that I am incredibly frustrated by the restrictions that have been imposed by Prop 1 and then the nearly hour-long presentation we heard at our last joint session where just the way in which the city budgets for capital projects and the enormously long lead time to doing that and the difficulty of even being able to acquire a piece of land with the restrictions and the way things are budgeted. I just see that we have to come up with more creative ways to, and so this notion of co-locating, especially with the low-income housing, which has its own funds set aside that, to be able to move in those kinds of locations. I see as the only realistic short-term solution for new facilities, unless we want to go to the voters and ask them to change the law that they passed. So that's that to me. I also want to sort of codify that our number one priority really needs to be the city adequately funding the maintenance of our existing facilities, because adding facilities, if you know, as we heard, currently it has not been funded at the level to which it needs to be able to have a regular replacement of roofs and other kinds of things that are needed. So to me, that's one of the biggest priorities. And then I think this study adequately describes the fact that that there is an opportunity in the Hillcrest and Hollister areas to look at potentially growing those by moving into adjacent spaces as they become available and are appropriate for the needs moving forward. I think that it would also be worth at least examining whether Bound Crossing and Colon Mystic, what the cost would be to expand these facilities, whether it's even possible, and what it might look like and what the costs are going to be, because these two are facilities that are undersized for the recommendations that Group 4 provided to us of 25,000 square foot minimum library for the size of our community. And then we still have this notion of moving the central staff out of downtown to create more public access spaces, which and where that may be, is it in the Hillcrest or Polk Mystic area for I'll call them the central staff to be moved out. What's an appropriate space for that? And is that a short-term solution to create more square footage that's public access, public facing access? That's a question that I think is worth exploring even more. But then it'd be nice to know, what is the cost of leasing that space for the central staff? What then is the cost of downtown renovation on top of the renovation that we've just are in the middle of going through? And then finally, I think a little more examination over time needs to happen between what is it that our public thinks is an advantage of a Boise Public Library facility versus a consortium library experience? And are there things that they think they're getting from coming to a Boise Public Library that they're not getting going to whatever Meridian or others that are within those circles? And we need to make sure that we're not just assuming that everything that we provide is also available at the Victory Branch, or pick your other Ada County or Garden City, et cetera, facility. And if it isn't, what can we do to work with those facilities and partner libraries to see whether there are things that we might want to work with them to help them provide those things to our patrons. So those are kind of the things that I've written down after looking at these that seem to jump out at me.
I have a couple of things. First, a question, Jessica. When we went through the growth discussion, was the impact of multifamily homes versus single-family homes incorporated in the analysis? It seems like the growth of a big apartment building, like right downtown, for example, is having a growth impact, or potential growth impact, that is larger than one might expect.
Yes, and I can't speak to it, but it was spoken to yesterday. So when I send the link to yesterday's work session, if you watch that, and I can't remember, maybe, do you remember who spoke to it?
Yep, and Director Dorr and Full trustee, yeah, the PDS group that presented it, they did have a consultant that helped do this study and analysis, and a lot of it, as a reminder, is based on the updated modern zoning code. So recommendations that they're making for growth and infill are completely related to that modern zoning code change that's encouraging those infill projects and densification. So,
Yeah, and I think Josh has
yeah, Josh,
showed some of the what has been approved with that lens of, is it multifamily, single family, you know, so they have really impressive data that they've been able to. So they did the sort of, you know, look back of what has, with the modern zoning code in place, what permits are we seeing and what is moving forward in terms of housing stock? And then also with and what's the available world that could be brought into.
Okay,
So they'll have both of those.
Very good.
Really, it's a really good discussion.
and Ron, I didn't fully appreciate when I started my term 5 years ago that Proposition 1 has effectively made expansion impossible. It's a revelation that's made itself clear over that period of time, and now it seems like there's no way to be successful to keep up with growth. And I wonder if it makes sense for some group to consider an initiative getting on the ballot to retract Proposition 1. I'm not an expert in what it takes to get an initiative on the ballot, but I'm guessing it takes signatures and it takes a marketing campaign during the election period. The case is made for why such a thing would make sense. And personally, I don't know if there's anything that prevents such a thing, but looking at the retraction of Proposition 1 through such a process might be the only strategy for getting the future course of the library back on track.
Well, certainly the Prop 1 initiative, I mean, beyond the dollar figure, it's also that supermajority to pass it, which, I mean, my understanding is we've never in our history passed a bond for a library, even though it's been attempted over the years, and just because that 2/3 majority is just so difficult to overcome. So maybe that is something to bring up at our joint meeting with city council to see what kind of appetite they may have. And I see Lucy there. Maybe you could speak to that that notion of whether you think there's any sense that the community would reconsider that, knowing that if we can make the case that virtually can't add any branches, because in today's dollars, $25 million will not buy you a new library.
Yeah, it definitely is a limitation. I would say without a plan that includes people to be motivated to have a new branch, I don't know why they would. I mean, unless the trustees can give them the entire city a plan of how it would benefit them and how, if they would have a access in their neighborhood, I don't know that there would be the urgency to overturn the referendum. We'd have to see.
I think that's a fair assessment. I also want to just jump in and speak a little bit to the 3 mile versus 2 mile radius question. And when I looked at that map, again, this becomes my sort of level of what's realistic versus not realistic. I mean, I would love to see a 2 mile radius, but what we're looking at then is the addition of 6 new libraries to get people within that 2 mile space. And that's just, that's more than doubling what we currently have in terms of the number of facilities. I just think that seems a little bit unrealistic. Much as it would be a fabulous goal, it's just like reality is dollars. I don't think it's going to make that happen. I would rather concentrate on some of the other options. Other thoughts? Other criteria?
I just want to move us to the joint work session on Tuesday, February 24th. I want to open it up for boards to tell me what you want to make sure we discuss with council, so I can put together some of what we'll share with them. Any prep materials that you think would be helpful for council. I was able to meet with the mayor last week, and one of the requests that I brought forward from board leadership was asking her to help you as trustees join that conversation. Council is very familiar with a more formal board meeting cadence than you are. And so she was very open to that request from board leadership about pausing and inviting board to speak a little bit more. Because I know I saw in that October meeting where I saw trustees try to be recognized, and the familiarity that council has with the more formal meetings, I really saw that show up. So we're all committed to having a discussion. And so I just wanted you to know that she's gonna really look for having openings for trustees to speak more.
What are the goals of that work session?
The goals of that work session, we're gonna look at the site selection criteria and the proximity goal, because that is part of the service goals as well. So we'll go back. I'm so glad you asked that question. We will go back to the library site selection criteria, talk about why we're recommending those, the update to the previous. And then we'll have a specific discussion more on the service goals that will lead into the proximity goal. Or in this case, proximity goal with the addition of the square footage goal as well. And why that I think is important, and actually building on Brian, your point, I think we'll be in a place that we can take some of those square footage. If we have under 15,000 square feet, what would it cost in terms of a new build, a renovated build, and then with the staffing level, what would that be? Sort of the one-time costs and the ongoing costs, and that's the piece that we'll bring after we've got a real discussion with you and board. I'm sorry, council and board. Then we can put those two pieces together and actually start to cost out some of the. And I think to your point about, gosh, we're really gonna need to look for places where we're co-locating. One, because that option of purchasing land and then sitting on it for a while is no longer an option we have in Prop 1. But also this is a place where we can literally get in on the ground floor in some of those city planning.
And I'll just say in terms of the co-location, I mean, I just think there's so much opportunity for synergy of services, and there's a lot of things that the library's taken on the last decade or so that are that I think would benefit from that kind of co-location with different communities of interest.
I'm sorry, I'm processing slowly today. So the goals are to have the conversation to get, or to make the council aware of the things.
And to get their input on it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, that was one of that came out of the October meeting, is that request to look at the 2 mile, and as you said, we did the homework.
So the hope is that with this discussion, then city council will also have an eye towards how to better support library facilities.
And you'll have alignment as board and council. This is what we're gonna do.
So the goals.
These are the goals.
Other thoughts from anybody? Feel like you haven't got.
I do. This was really helpful.
Okay. Hearing nothing else on that topic, we'll move on to the recruitment process.
And I don't need to, let's not do the deck on this. I need a beautiful deck, but I don't like having the not being able to see the people online. So I want to, as we talked about in the January meeting, and as Brian, as you referenced in just today, Brian's term will end on June 30th. And so we are just about to begin the process to recruit the next board of trustee to the library. We have worked, we meaning Carrie Davis and I, have worked with the mayor's office on the timeline for the posting of that. We will post the open call on March 30th of this year. And so when we do that, we'll make sure that you're aware of it. There'll be a press release, there'll be an application page on the city's website. The application window will be open from March 30th to April 24th. After that, the review and vetting of candidates will happen in May, mostly May and early June. The first thing we do is we always confirm residency. We make sure we look at the cover letter and resume. I also do an initial sort of conversation with people who we either who reach out or who we think might be a good fit. And this will be based on the conversations that you have and meet with board leadership. We talk about the skills that we're hoping to add to the board. And then I put together the candidates that meet the criteria that we have and share those with the mayor's office. The mayor does their own review, their own interview process. They'll appoint a new trustee, they'll be confirmed by council. We are targeting the June 16th council meeting for confirmation so that then that new trustee can be part of the July meeting. Obviously, Brian, we're trying to build a timeline that honors your commitment to stay through June 30th, but super appreciate, as you said, last meeting, to be willing if something goes awry, but we're on track for that. And since we've done this before, I think we'll be able to, as long, unforeseen things always happen, but I think we're in a good spot. So really my question is, and Ron, you teed it up last month, what skills and experience do you think are most important when thinking about the current configuration? Are there any gaps or is there anything that you'd like to see added as we are looking at candidates?
Thoughts, anybody?
Given that prospects for growing our facilities are not great, yet the population of the area continues to grow dramatically. We're number 2, I guess, on the latest surveys in the country. It may be that you'd be well served by board members who have experience taking things into a digital environment going forward. You don't talk to people, you talk to chatbots first, and we may need to do things that make the productivity of our valuable resources much greater by using the latest tools and AI services available to be able to meet demand for things. So that's the only thought that occurs to me.
Others? Your thoughts? Maybe you've been on the board for a while, had done your tenure in leadership.
Are we just talking about qualifications?
Right. What are the skill set do you think that the board needs that over time, because you felt maybe was lacking that we could bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of any particular skill set, but I think one thing that's been helpful is if somebody has some sort of background or knowledge of how kind of public financing and just all of those aspects of being on kind of a public entity work versus, I mean, it's just very different than private corporations or perhaps somebody that's done some nonprofit board service, I think would be helpful kind of for the moment where we're at.
I guess I would say that as we're trying to serve all areas of the city, it would be also helpful to have folks with geographical distribution across the city, so that we're not all from whatever east end of Boise or something that doesn't give everybody their agree. That would be helpful. And I'll just say that when I joined the board, I did not expect to need to be so deeply engrossed in this facility planning process. I mean, it's not an area of expertise of mine, and I just was surprised at how much it's absorbed my tenure on the board. So just say that maybe someone who has some level, if this is going to continue to be an area that we're going to have to revisit over the next 4 to 10 years, I would say that 5 to 10 years, I would say that's something you might want to consider, at least folks with that background. Even though we have expertise available to us, I just think as a board member trying to grapple with these issues. Anything else from anybody?
Nope, that's helpful.
Okay. Brian, are you available still to do the review?
I am.
Vouchers. Okay,
yes.
Great. And does anybody have conflicts that they already know about for the March 11th next board meeting? Just make sure that we are sure we have a forum.
And how about the February 24th
Do
joint
you
work?
know what I just have a generic hold, but it's getting harder and harder to hold.
Do you
So
know?
it'll be 10. We know that the council hasn't been until 9:30. So
Okay,
we're thinking it will probably be set for 10. We don't know for sure.
and time bound on the other side.
Till it goes, I think they have to go into their, I think 11:30.
Okay. Thank you.
About.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I had one other question. I noted happily that there were some big donations, good sized donations. One from TF Dixon, $10,000 donation for audio materials. And one from Bernie and Warren McCain Fund, $4,000 for Bound Crossing library. And I hope, make sure we give them a great thank you.
I know Tom Dixon well, more than happy to chat to him to thank him for this gift. I know the McCain family as well, which I'm happy to reach out to them as well. So
Let me know if you want library letterhead or.
yeah,
Let me know.
but I appreciate it. Yeah, I will. I'm glad you brought it. Okay, guess I would entertain hearing no new other business, rather I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, are in adjournment. Thank you so much. I'm sorry this took a little longer than usual, but this is obviously a weighty issues, topics to get. So thanks, everybody. And